first part, I think we're going to talk about the dancing assignment, which is their second from last assignment in this class, which was the more fun, more free-form assignment where you were allowed to look at lots of reference to come up with an inspirational musical piece that you wanted to time out first and follow closely, perhaps even rotoscope, to create a spirited dancing animation. So I'm looking forward to looking at all the diverse work today. I know, I already took a quick look, and I know we have lots of 2D. I think we had a stop motion one in there.
Ooh.
Right? Okay, and then we have, what else? Do we have any 3D? Yeah, we have 3D. Doing Ty in the back, he turned it a 3D one, and so we should have a mixture and maybe someone else. Yeah?
I think you're missing mine.
Okay. Let's download a little bit, if you don't mind. It's kind of, I know the order is as we go through. I'd like to keep it more random, so today, the order of that we're going to watch these animations are more random, and then we'll get to yours. So certainly last is not least. So we're going to look at these aspects here. It's on the rubric, it's on the grading rubric for this assignment, and you notice it's only 4. It's not as many as during some of those other more technical assignments, because as I mentioned at the start, this is a more free-form assignment. So it does entail generally the value of weight and timing in the rubric. So we will talk a little about that. We'll look at each piece and we'll you know, think of how any of these values can apply. Timing and weight, pose appeal. Can any pose be stronger or be brought out? Can a silhouette be stronger? And is there a staging that could, you know, pose and staging works together. Is there an angle that could maybe benefit any certain pose? And then creativity. This is an important one on this assignment because as being more free form, I would allow you to rotoscope, as I mentioned. I would allow you to use different mediums, even pair up with another student, maybe to do a dance-off. And however creative you were on this assignment, I do want to reward. So that's also an evaluation criteria. And technical completion, very practical. That's been on every rubric so far, right? Technical completion. And that's basically, is it finished to the length I asked? At 25 seconds may seem a lot for this assignment. Most of them were 15 up to this point. But you get to use cycles and you get to use editing to get up to that length. And why? Because this is the first one where a soundtrack is required. We have to hear the music. So more than 15 seconds is necessary to hear the whole length of a song, or at least half a song. Okay, so let's get started. I pre-downloaded. I know you can't read as the projector is, and I'll zoom in as much as I can, and that's all it allows me to. Question back there.
Can I go first?
Okay, so I think that's Dama back there, and we will start with first requests. Okay, Damaris, and go to full screen, and let's just give it a watch through and make sure my sound's working.
You know that she's too cold, got to. She's got a mad dog. So many bottles of love potion in the night. I told her that I was a proper chase. I've been this way since 1956. I wanna let you
Oh, great. You really feel the sound connecting with it. So how did you start animating? Was this personal reference that you took?
Yeah, so like I work at a roller rink.
No kidding. So,
And I'm the one in Glendale.
so this is from your footage?
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So like my sister, she participated in this Halloween like
Wow.
collaboration with a bunch of theaters.
Yeah.
And like I recorded the adults, and that's one of the. It's not the complete footage, but it's a portion
Yeah.
of the footage because that video is like 3 minutes long.
Right.
So, like,
Well, what's, striking about it right away, with the color background, is you can identify there's two characters with a contrasting color scheme. So it seizes your eye upon sort of a pas de deux, where you have two characters almost dancing, even though they're roller skating. Let's watch it again. That's pretty cool. It's kind of like very close to the reference of feeling that's kind of what happened, what fell in front of the camera. So how did you animate? Is it on, did you have a rhythm of key poses that you drew? How did you create that?
I did this on Photoshop,
Yeah.
and I was just referencing off of the video itself.
Like, would you look for the key poses and draw those key poses and then fill in on sixes or on twos?
I did it on twos,
On twos.
fours, and a couple of fives.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it looks like, it doesn't look stuttery, like you used a good economy of when to draw a new frame
Yeah.
and when to hold it for a little bit longer.
Yeah.
I thought maybe there's some sixes in there, but yeah, it looks like, yeah, twos, fives, some change.
Yeah.
And that gives a really kind of natural look. It doesn't look too rotoscoped.
Yeah, because I did the longer frames because like I wanted to keep the hold. I didn't want to be constantly, because like it's a long video, like try to like keep it easy.
What would you, I thought a couple things. When we talk about timing and weight, number one, it's so close to what's happening with the timing of the actual reference that we, when we're doing semi-rotoscoping like this, we can only exaggerate.
Yeah.
We could probably hold a pose for longer or create a smear or exaggerate it, but what would you do? Is there anything you would do when you talked about pose, I mean, here the pose is the pose, but I was thinking of staging. Are these two red and blue characters on different layers or they're all on?
Different layers.
That's excellent. Because if you drew them on different layers, I might suggest that you have the red and the blue. And where is your eye looking? Your eye is going to be like searching for the target. Like, what is the main attraction? And there are times that they're kind of split apart. And that is causing a tension that you could either overpower by having one character come forward. Let's look. Right? So it is related to two, posing, but it's actually the other side of pose, which is staging. It's definitely catching our eye. So if we had this on another layer, we could zoom in or make the character a little bigger. And then red character goes off, blue character is now stealing the show. And then we can make it a little bit more clear who is sort of passing the wand of attention or something. Either with camera zooms and the background is rather static, you can have the background on the third layer and like zoom in the camera, passing off on the red and the blue. Something like that to just heighten, sweeten up the staging and the art direction. Also, there's something happening, there's a thing being passed.
Yes, I don't know what it's called.
What is that?
I don't know. It looked like this potion thing.
Was it real or
It
did
was a
you?
prop. It was a prop.
Oh,
That
you
they-
actually-
That they were like passing towards each other.
Oh, wow.
I don't know. It looked like a little like potion looking thing. I don't know.
Were these was this guy kind of like an adult and a kid, or
They were
was it?
both adults. There was
Yeah.
a woman and a man.
I mean, it has a lot of really cool potential. I think it is technically complete, number 4. I feel like you finished. I don't see what that says, but it feels like it's 25 seconds, right?
So,
It's more, isn't it?
and
It's 33, so this is more than complete in length. So good job. What I think anybody can holler out anything they would like to, if they wildly suggest. It would be cool if a special effect came off. I thought maybe the staging and the emphasis of one character as it passes off to another is something you could accentuate in this if you want, or have some slight camera moving side to side because the background's kind of static. Or maybe get psychedelic, you know, it's like Love Potion #9. You could like, every time they have the big heart comes out of the background. I know we only have 2 weeks to do this, and we're just talking. It's just different ideas of different ways to kind of feel the music through the aesthetics, or through the color, or through special effects on the characters if you ever wanted on your own to take it that way. Any other ideas? Okay, cool. Thank you.
Okay, it's your
Okay, so now we have a very different one. This one is 3D animation, CG mixed with video. This is Doom Ties. Tell us how did you put this together?
I just create a sphere for the environment.
Oh, a sphere.
Yeah.
And you project it.
And just put the rigs, try to do like a walk, dancing walk. Yeah,
Okay.
based on like the music video that I watch.
All right,
Yeah.
let's watch it. Okay, sound on. Here we go.
あれ何わからないよそれ何甘えりそうに落ちる Welcome to the dark night みんな心の中まで行かれちまっている Welcome to the dark night そんな世界にみんなで寄り添い合っている Welcome to the dark night みんな心の中から弱って朽ちていく Welcome to the dark night そんな世界だからみんな慰め合っている
Wow, really creative. That's really like 37 seconds too. Very complete. Starting with that. Let's just turn the sound down. So how did you coordinate the movements of the character dancing and the background? You just hand animated the character, the environment, or did you create some sort of rig between?
I just pick the one line, the one that doesn't have people around, so it look like everything, only the rigs is moving.
Yeah, it looks.
It look better with that environment than the other ones.
I know a student had asked this too before of how to create a camera. I think it was Lily, perhaps, in 3D, how to create a camera rig and camera moving with interest. I don't know if you knew this, but you can create a 3D camera with an extra node, which is an interest, and it's really easy to animate that camera looking at things. So if you have like a fly buzzing around or a moving character like this, you can just have the character sit in place and animate the interest, or even parent that interest to the character's waist. And then you don't even have to animate the camera, it just moves with it. Sometimes that's a little bit too rigid. Let's loop this because it's really different. It looks different, and the combination of, you know, CG and live background is really cool. I honestly thought it was going to have some kind of cruel ending where the big truck is running.
Is that not in the middle of the music video? That's like a really long video.
What language are they singing in?
Japanese.
It's Japanese?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, in some shots it feels like the character's big, and sometimes it, gets shot overhead, it feels like it's small, and it puts it in this kind of ambiguous world. As I mentioned, I was complimenting you on every project you're doing, especially since the first ones you were turning in. So much more life in the spine in your characters. So much more organicism through the moving parts of the characters that you're using more like a... Are you using a pose-to-pose or a more layered style?
Pose to pose.
Pose to pose, whatever you're doing, it's working. And for the reference, did you look at something else? Did you act this out?
I just look at the music video and look at the pose for every second.
Wow. But you didn't put a video in an image plane right in Maya, right?
No.
You just looked, you worked in Maya, used your imagination, looked over to the right for reference, and
Yeah.
applied in Kiko. So you really used your brain and eyes.
Yeah, look at
It
the
looks a
line.
lot more natural that way, not so rigidly rotoscoped. Yeah, this kind of shoulder movement and action like that. The pose appeal here is of course strong, and I like how you cut the camera up to the juggling of the shoulders part. That reaction is really, really nice. What's really tricky, especially in CG, as you get closer and closer to nuanced acting, character animation, is to make the character seem it has weight and it's really landing on the ground. And when it makes a motion that has an origin, let's say this kind of motion from the shoulders, that it may start from that arm and travel down, or it might start from the neck and travel out. Most of the energy in the body when we're just going about our lives are happening from the inside out, right? So when we're walking, it's really happening from the center of gravity to the legs. So in some of these poses here, the action is the origin of the actions are coming from the arms or coming from the legs are doing something. Just there's some practice, especially in CG, to exaggerate, make it really pronounced where that energy is first coming from. For example, if the character's leg is doing like a side shuffle or something, really go extra than what you see on the reference. If it's a video reference and it has a character taking a step, like taking a dance step to its left, if you follow it kind of strictly, it will be a little bit stiff. Yeah, it'll kind of look a little awkward. So in an animation, and 2D animators know this, do a really big extra antic pose. Get the leg up, get all this opposite of that direction pose. And then foot, and then step into it. Yeah, so think of wildly exaggerating, like going back, even if a character's just like doing that, right? Just doing, and play it in, even though you have the reference, what you want to do in animation is take it a step further, always toward the more cartoony, because you can always take it down. If it's too Ren and Stimpy or too wild, too rubbery, then you can always calm it down a little bit. So there's a lot of really nice actions here. And one other thing we'll try to avoid as much as possible, even if it's in the reference, is something called twinning. That say a character is doing like something with their arms to where they raise their arms at the same time. This character is doing something like, almost purposely, I don't know what point it is, but it seems to be raising its arms in coordination. And there's kind of this sort of dance. Now it's meant to be symmetrical, right? That dance is meant to be symmetrical. But in animation, especially in CG, always exaggerate asymmetry a little bit. It will always look a little more natural. Why? Because you have a digital character. Your audience is going to be a little bit prejudiced against a digital character versus a hand-drawn. Hand-drawn character, our audience will go, oh, it's hand-drawn. It's charming, This is a prejudice, yes, but it's true that when you see a CG character, people say, oh, it's digital. So what you have to do is try to make it seem less mathematical, less predictable, and with the characters like raising their arms, try to avoid twinning. So if they're raising their arms to do a dance move, instead of like that, go, see the difference? Like just a slight, that's like a 2-frame overlap. This left arm, right, starts 2 frames before the other one. You can barely notice. Most people watching it think it's simultaneous. Now the same thing with like if you raise your arm like that and one like that, instead of like perfectly, even if it's in the dance, you just go like, I don't know if you could tell the difference. One was lagging behind the other one. Think about that for all these kind of moves. Just introduce a little bit more lag between one motion and the other motion. And you're going to see a little more life. And exactly what you're trying to avoid is the look that the character is stiff or mechanical. And you did a great job so far on this. And you're giving yourself a big challenge because you're showing a lot of, when you're cutting off the waist here, much easier. When you're showing a full character, touching the ground, I mean, then you got to get the feet right? And try to bend the foot, so it's not always flat on the ground. And so character can be very expressive by leaning into something like that to the side. But I was on my tips of my toes there. It's a lot of work. This is a great example for 2 weeks dance animation. So definitely applaud that. If it's something you want to keep working on to polish over weeks, it could be something you could, build upon, add to your portfolio, whatnot. Any other comments on this one? Okay, great job. Thank you. All right.
We'll always have the past.
Wow. It's 41 seconds. You start on 11 mode. That's definitely at least 32 of really, really elegantly observed and drawn. I mean, I have a lot of questions for it, but it's really beautiful work, and it kind of was so meaningful for me, like it stopped, I felt I want to watch the rest of the song. So when I say meaningful, like I'm talking about the creativity of it, it felt like maybe it's an expression, a love song or expression between the two. Great. So what did you do how did you select this song, and how did you use reference to create this animation?
I didn't know what song to use, so whenever I was driving to school, I would just put on Spotify and just try to look through songs that I liked. And then for references, I would take clips from other videos, and then as I was drawing them, I would kind of end on one scene, and then I would have to kind of move the clip to match it together, and then draw the frames in between, so I would combine it.
So was it one reference you're using, but you're jumping around on the timeline?
No, it's multiple references.
Oh, really? You put this together on the page, on the screen?
Yeah, and then
These
so
are animated.
if it didn't match, I would just have to draw the in-betweens for it.
Yeah, it's really nice. And it feels natural without being on the rotoscope. That's, a little bit. Keep reading that as Han Solo. Han Solo. San Ho. Yeah, I think these things I feel like glitches are really creative. At first I'm like, oh no, that's how you met me, because it works with the music. If you have, I was just talking about this in my other class, jump cuts in animation, where you do a zoom in and then you do a slightly more zoomed in, zoom in, and it cuts to it. It just feels like a jump cut, and it feels awkward. It feels like a mistake. But nothing is a mistake if you connect it to the sound. It really, if you have a staccato soundtrack, or it matches the beat and the music, and or something like backwards, or something scratching, and you have creative glitches like that, it just makes it so much more creative. So, talking about inventive approaches. And also, it seems like a couple of different styles of dancing too. That's why I didn't think it was one form, because this is really the ballet, and then you have like a ballroom dancing, or it's, did you invent more like how the characters would intertwine with each other? Because it seems like exaggerated in a good way.
Yeah, because the song is, well, about like, relationship kind of, or just a love song, I guess. I wanted to add another character, but for some of the dancing, it was just like individual, so I wanted to kind of, I don't know, incorporate another person in, but then the scene wouldn't match, so I'm just like, there's that part where like he cuts out, or like when she turns.
Yeah. And they're very symmetrical in characters, but they do seem really different. I think we're talking about asymmetry and an offset. One is slightly different than the other. That's maybe slightly smaller and offset. I think that works pretty well. And what I liked is these, we talk more about exaggeration too, and you have, it's tough in 2D to keep a consistency of volume or solid drawing. And you've kept that pretty well throughout. And you also have these creative cartoony effects like smears. Let's see if we can catch one. And at some points they disappear. I thought those seemed intentional or what?
Oh, it was for the beat of the
It
music.
did, because it followed the sound, yeah. I thought it, like if it didn't follow the sound, I'm like, oh, you forgot to drill on it. It did work well, and I think it's making it seem a lot more innovative. But here we have this interesting snare, which we're taking definitely away from the reference into a new fantasy place. Animation. And let's see. 1, 2, sometimes 2 or 3 is all you need. And and there's a smear on the way down. It's so funny when we stop these things, it looks like they've grown antlers or something, or the arms are on fire. And that's the nature and illusion of animation when, let's look at the same thing, here with the leg and the arm, we just play it. It seems right. The effect is very articulate, pronounced, and it doesn't seem abnormal to have such an exaggeration. So it's a good lesson in how you can exaggerate or add effects. And if you wanted to, you could push it even more. That you could take the whole volume of the characters when it's under upward suspension and narrow them out and like stretch them out more than you ever think you could. And then when it comes back down in the follow through, you can fatten that character up just for 6 frames. It seems radical when you do it, and you think, what are you talking about? It's made out of rubber? No, that would just seem ridiculous. But then what happens is if it's only on for 6 frames, from 2, let's say 2 to 8 frames, the eye just gobbles that up. And it processes that exaggeration as normal. And we don't see a solid fixation on the exaggerated form. We see it as an accentuation. It just enhances sometimes. And it also takes it into more a zone of cartoon or fantasy. Well done. I like when the character sort of appears out of nowhere. Might be nice, I don't know, what, if you could take out just enhance a couple of these drawings right before the partner comes in. If you could maybe do a pose, we're talking about poses, maybe do an expression or pose where the character is anticipating it, be like that, and then when it appears, the other person appears, that could be a follow through. And or you could have it just pop in like that, and the character doesn't know. The character is surprised by it, and it just takes a little aback, and does a reaction to it, and then starts dancing. If there's no time for that, if it doesn't work with the beat or the rhythm, totally understand, just throwing it on the table. They seem like they're getting closer to the camera. If we brought they're getting a little bit, they're dancing physically a little bit closer to the camera. What if we brought the camera in a little bit closer as they're dancing? That would feel really cool, and they're wondering like, wow, they're turning, they're pirouetting that whole time. How do I draw that correctly while having the character advance toward us? Because Lily's drawing three-dimensional characters coming toward a camera lens really. And so what will happen is the hands or the parts of the body that are closer to the camera would distort and foreshorten. And you did that on an animation one time. I think your last one where the character's running and it's running away and the feet are hit, is that right? And the feet are really big. One of the hardest things to animate and keep in volume. So I think, I know you're capable of it from that other project. It would be really cool if you did that to these pirouetting characters coming closer to the camera, and when it gets there, you could start exaggerating the hands and arms that are closer. That would be just stellar upon something already very, very good. And now that I see it, maybe there's not enough time to make a reaction shot to the second person, but you would have to give up a beat or two to have that happen.
I don't wanna know how long we'll last. In the end, we'll always have the past.
Yeah, they're going like that, doing the windmill thing. That would be another chance to have that. Really exaggerate that arm coming to the camera, sweeping like that. And I love these effects. I mean, they could be even more when they're showing the arms. The red heart in the beginning? That effect? What if you brought that in here and have it like this entity that swirls around? Because you have a lot of compositional space up here. You could have that red swirl animation come in. Now, just so everybody knows, this is 2 weeks of work. This is really a lot. And I'm not saying you need to have done that, but only if you had time. Only if you wanted to edit on your own. Just some suggestions. Okay, great, let's watch the rest. Okay. I just want to watch the second half to the end.
In the end, we'll always have the past.
Yeah. So you sort of hit the mark and say, okay, I'm done. You could probably, maybe the easy enough thing for tiny improvement, wouldn't take much time, is to have them hold the last pose and just hold it and have it fade out. And have the end music fade in. It's just a little thing. I'm just being nitpicky. Absolutely great work, Lily. Thank you. All right. Let's watch one more and take a break. Are we okay? One more and take a break. Okay. Nice work. Very stylish. So tell us what did you use for reference for this?
I can't dance, but I recorded myself dancing and then
Oh,
I
that's
had
good.
to fix it a lot. But it's
So did you edit the video a little for the reference to get the timing that you wanted, or how did it work there?
I kind of recorded a little bit, like I just like played it and then I just attempted what was dancing, and then just used the parts that I like.
Okay. Timing seems pretty close to the reference ring. I know you said you changed it and you had to alter it. I do see a lot of the feeling of a reference in it. Where I feel exaggeration more is probably in the hair. And then when you get a close-up, it's like you're a little bit more animated than when you were the camera's back. So that's good to see that you took liberties at, okay, I'm gonna really follow the body and kinetics and try to get realistic organic motion, but I also want to take it in the direction of imagination and exaggeration. So the question is like, oh, how much of those wrinkles in the clothing are you going to do? Like, how much do you want to get stuck into the little details of like the reference that has folds in the clothing and stuff like that? And I think it's a nice balance. And I do see there's more exaggeration in the hair. And like I said, the face at the end, it comes up to become more imaginative and expressive. I didn't want to say imaginative, more expressive. So I think the strong part of the pose, I know we've been talking about staging at the same time as posing because they're kind of two sides of the same coin, is the staging in here feels really nice. That it's not just a dancing character, step one, caught in a frame and dancing on a stage. It's not the proscenium stage flat thing. The figure is dancing in a volume. The figure's, of course, representing 3 dimensions with 2 dimensions. And we have the feeling of the camera moving as the character's dancing. Did you have someone else film this, that they moved the camera, or did you do that yourself?
No, I just was like, I just recorded it on my phone and I just kind of put it up on, so a lot of it is just what I thought it would look like.
Wow.
Zoomed up.
You reimagined it at some of the lower angles coming up like that?
Yeah.
That's great, you did that. And then you have a facility to do that. Like you can look at a reference in drawing, like, I don't like the angle, I'm gonna redraw it. And you redraw it by hand using your imagination. That's really nice. I really like the negative space and composition that's happening with the hair. Especially when we get up closer, there's this empty blank space and it's really being electrified by the edges of these lines as you dance. And so as it gets closer to you, there's this yin and yang between the black ink lines and the white space of the back. I'll show you what I mean. More to here. Let's just stop it. Yeah, like, let's go in frame by frame. Some nice curves in the hair, echoing this very alive, and even a still frame has some vibrancy of dance in it. Like if we only saw this frame, we knew the character's dancing, we could assume like it's in an action pose. But it's not a stiff pose, it's not straight up and down. You have some S curve on the back if you trace the spine. It's not straight up and down. You have this going on, which keeps it really alive. And as we get closer, it's another really strong pose. Really great silhouette. Another really great silhouette, very expressive. And like the choice to do that curve here is very musical again on the hair. Great pose. Tilted head. Awesome. Also, you're using some smears here, which are really nice on the hands. If you had more time, Magali, to work at, what would you do to enhance or change or modify or enhance anything that you've done already?
I was gonna add more frames, but I just didn't have enough time because I wanted it to look a little bit smoother. And then
Yes.
I did wanna make like the frames that I added, like, or like to edit some of them so that they could look a little bit looser, because I can't dance, so it's like very stiff. And so I was looking at myself dancing, I was like,
Yeah.
oh no, so I had to change a lot, like the legs and stuff, and like there was parts where I had to exaggerate the pose, and I was like, oh no.
No, that's good. I was thinking that maybe a similar comment I made to Lily's, that you have some hints of this effect that could go further, that you could expound upon with the smearing of the hands. See a lot of examples of this, sometimes in motion capture, where they have, you know, magic dust or something flying off the limbs and arms and legs, leaving a trail. So it seems like you have this blank canvas of white space that could be built to do it, and it would just give a lot of intention to the whole composition. You know, like a character is dancing and whipping up an electrical charge into the background, and that background's coming to life as well. Like, that could be cliche, you know, maybe everyone's doing that. But if you do it in a kind of unique way, for example, you could look for ways in an image like this, if you ever want to enhance it, to add secondary or tertiary animation. What could, anybody have a clue of what they could maybe add to the character just to give it an excuse to have secondary animation? We already have the hair, that's secondary, right? What else, Lily?
Earrings.
Yeah, that would be great. What if you had these beautiful dangling earrings and they were gold, you know, or silver or ruby or something that would really catch the attention. So it's now about not just about the dance, it's really about showing off the earrings. Or anything else on that line you could think of to add?
Like a necklace?
That's what I thought of first. What would be like a long pearl necklace? You ever see those really long ones that just dangle? You loop them up twice, and maybe they're fake pearls, but you know they're really long, and someone's on a dance floor and they're flailing it around, and it's flapping around like a whip. That could be just an awesome study in fluid animation, secondary and tertiary, and follow through. So then it suddenly really becomes about the prop as much as about the dancer. Or it could be the shoes. Like it could be red shoes. Sequined red shoes in The Wizard of Oz. Maybe she's dancing on the witch's grave. You know, you could bring a narrative into it very easily by adding a very fun and meaningful prop to it. Be a hat too, or something. Could be dancing with a hat and that, like a feather. You ever seen one of those 1920s, 30s hats with the big ostrich feather, and the feathers like banging around like a pirate's hat feather, but this is like the 1920s, roaring 20s. It wore like all these pearls and lots of things flapping off and animating, whiplashing off the character. You can have something like that, and maybe the hat could fall off. And just giving an excuse to using a prop, maybe, if not other terms, to enhance what's already there, and just make the dancing, you know, really an introductory part of showing other objects dancing. So it's like a chain reaction. You know, like you're getting it started with this dance, and then the world's picking up and it's dancing with you. Kind of idea. You could do that with props, you could do that with the background. All right, I think that's good. We should take a 10-minute break. And thank you, Valerie. Great work. Okay, welcome back from the break. We're going to take a look at a couple more. Using some very different techniques. I want to start, I'm just trying to mix it up here. So I'm selecting aesthetically, let's say. This one is, yeah, that one's from curving. Ready? Here we go. Is there a sound?
1, 2, 3, My baby don't mess around because she loves me so, and this I know for sure. But does she really wanna, but can't stand to see me walk out the
That is so cool. It takes me back to 2005, that music, and also to 1930. Wow. Really good. Technically accomplished. I mean, everything's in tonal, like black and white color. You spent on so much splendid time coloring and toning these. Beautiful smears going on. Excellent creativity. Innovative approach on that one. Let's watch that again. I think the introductory to this like tent, circus tent, is that like this old timey, really cute. I have a lot of ideas. This launches a lot of ideas you could take this to. If you had more time on this, Irving, what would you change or add to it?
I mean, I really wanted to like shorten the time like here, because I felt like the hold on to like before like the camera closed in, felt like it was too long.
Okay, so you're saying a little bit too long at the beginning
Yeah.
intro. You could shorten the time.
And
Maybe
probably
do
add,
a
like, more
Mhm.
movement to like the dances instead of just like moving the arms. Probably to just add more body movement, I guess.
Add more volume, add more movement. Just repeating what you say so it may be clear. Recording here. It's so understandable. Let me loop that so I don't have to keep restarting it. It's when we talk about pose appeal. It's I don't know why it's slowing down. So you make sure it's looping. Okay, good. This is so recognized as an early, kind of Fleischer Brothers animation style. Where you have like the early techniques that leaped off of the sequential animation art form when it started to become Nickelodeon, short feature, standalone, little animated bits here, like from either Betty Boop or Felix the Cat, kind of. It's so established in our mental bank or archive what that looks like. And capturing that is a matter of technical completion, technical and innovative style. And it also is a time in animation before they developed a lot of the new policies and rules of cartoon exaggeration, 12 or 13 or whatever, more principles of animation, because they were concerned just about attracting attention to the character and placing it in a exaggerated fixed pose and like having the limbs go crazy. Another one I didn't show you, I showed you another student work that looked kind of similar, is the Merry Melodies, the skeleton dance. Has anyone seen that animation? Yeah, it has this style that's unmistakable, that things are on celluloid, like multiplane. The character's made of multiplane, and some parts of the skeleton, as they dance, stay rock solid and smooth, while the legs go crazy. And if that were CG, it would look bad, right? Unless you're really finessing, unless you're really good. But it just is a style that you've captured here. So if we try to critique it and say, oh, it needs more S-curve on the back, or it needs more of this and that, it's like, well, that's not fitting its style. So perhaps that's a moot critique on this. But what I would say is, like, in general timing, like, you captured all those gags and knickknacks of that early inventive animation style. I just feel like, is there parts of it, it's following the music, right? There's parts of it that could hold a little bit longer. I'm thinking, the end, like when it does that ta-da, maybe it could be holding that pose. It's not even animation, you're just adding time to a held pose. Hold up. And before the curtains close, we can get some sort of reaction. So we need time to process what the dance is to the audience. Anything else like that? Are you picking up some really interesting secondary animation going on here? Let's watch it again. Look for the secondary. Yeah. Well, here. Really nice. There's one thing that I might do that this goes in the aspect of twinning. You have nice secondary animation on this cowlick hair coming up. And if we watch it move, it kind of moves with the hands. Here it moves a little bit separate, which is good. We're aiming at first for asynchronous. So if there's another part where the hands are coming down, I think it's here. Here, I think it's a little bit too close to the timing of the arms, so it could just be delayed by 2 or 3 frames. The arms come down, and then the hair comes down. And the twinning of each arm. I thought I saw you. Okay, the movement is, if you look at the left and the right hand particularly, they move a little bit too close in synchronicity. So you could just have one hand come down like that. Just give a little bit of wiggle to it. Here or there. Very easy to implement and insert, just to delay that shot. And let's look at some of these smears. They're really great. That's really cool. So were you just experimental when you did that, or did you have like a design of how? Did you just use a smear tool in After Effects? I mean, in Photoshop?
I was just experimenting to see like how it would look.
Yes.
I did a couple of them.
Yeah.
Many of them did reviews, but I like this one.
Yeah. It really is just one held for 2 frames, right? You could like do a little bit of a trail. It's like 2 frames before. You could say this is like the 4th frame. You could do a little bit of a trail. It's still left over, so you have 2 frames. Or 2 poses on 4 frames of a smear. We're pretty good. That's a classic. I see that all the time on these kind of stylizations. Very, very cool. It's also the classic twirl blur. Nice. Just watch it one more time. Just note something pretty nice. The character, this is a staging issue. When the curtains open, we see a character that's not just facing the audience straight on, they're facing obliquely or 3/4 to the back. And it's a unique way to present the character. You might put like this leg right here, which seems like the weight of the character and the big head is pulling backward. You could place that leg a little bit further back, like this. And the nice thing that I just discovered is the character doesn't turn his head first, they turn their eyeball. And then the head moves. It's really nice, like little puppies do that, or little cats or dogs, and they're looking at something, they don't want to turn their head yet, they go like that. I think it's really cute. It's really effective. I kind of missed it the first time, but maybe you can make the eye a little bit bigger. You know, you can try to, compromise the volume sometimes to push the eye being a little bit bigger. And you won't miss that motion. Because you're going from a really small eye, big eye, and then that's really nice. It'll be kind of cool, like before it does this twirl, remember I said you could put that right leg back a little bit? You could take the left leg back a little bit. You could take the right leg and do a little bit before it twirls. You could do an antic. The leg comes out like that. And then, it gives it a little bit of a kickstart into that twirl. And there's a few more places like that. And of course, if you ever want to polish, you could slow things down like this curtain. And it could have a secondary where it just doesn't open like that. It opens like that. But if you look at some of those old Popeye animations, those black and white, they have props that are really stiff like that too, and doors that open really, really quickly, way more than reality, exaggerated. It's probably because of the schedule and how they had to finish all the rendered work or painted work. But if you look at some of that old stuff, they take really good use of cycles. Like if you don't move the camera a lot, you can use the same kind of cycles. You can have a cycle for the curtains to do a little bit of secondary flop as they open, so they can open like, right? Instead of like. And then you can recycle that. You could use that at the end, or you can use it as a joke, like he goes like this and he thinks the performance open and the curtain comes in and he's like, no, I'm not done yet, wait. And they have the curtain stop in the middle, and then he's pushing the curtains open, and then he does one more dance. Now I'm done. And then that kind of thing. You could just keep recycling the curtain, as long as you don't move the camera, keep recycling that curtain animation over and over and over. So it's not difficult to develop this. You've got like 25 seconds. You could develop it in 2 minutes just by using what you already have and just maybe finessing some of the poses a little bit, adding some antics, and dealing with some symmetry issues of things not happening exactly twinning. Great style and work. Thank you. Certainly. Then, I do feel it's Bee Gees, but I don't know.
Well, you can tell by the way I use my walk. I'm a woman's man, no time to talk. The music loud, women walk, being kicked around since I was born. I never tolerate, that's okay. And you may look the other way, but we can try to understand. The New York Times are based on man. Whether you're a brother away there or not, these
Cool. It's really fun. So you just went for it, like you had the music playing and you straight ahead animation, you just animated. How did you coordinate the beats and the song with the stop motion poses?
I actually didn't. I did the dance first, and then I picked the song, and I just thought, I think this fits well with it.
So when you say that, you like had the song and then you danced to it and had reference and matched it, or you did it totally within your mind's eye?
No, I danced first.
Yeah, you did dance. Did you record the dance and look at the reference?
No, I didn't do any references. I just moved it around, and then I was just looking what song to pick, and then I picked the Bee Gees.
Okay, let's watch it again, because the mind wants to make things fall into a beat, even if it doesn't. It just sort of fall into this gestalt, like it wants to fall into those beats. And then the camera flips. Is it a recycled shot, or it's just you move the camera?
I just moved the camera.
Oh yeah, there's totally different background.
Mm-hmm.
How did you create that puppet? What's its construction?
Clay.
And wire? It's a wire armature?
Yeah, I use like soft metal wire as like the skeleton.
Yeah.
To keep it to move it around, but like, it's so soft that it would fall. So I had a paper clip to add as like as a stand-in thing too.
Oh, so that's a lot smaller than I thought. I see a paper clip there, and I'm thinking that was a bigger thing. So this character is only like that big, huh?
Yeah.
That's a smart idea, because otherwise you get larger, 1/6 scale or something. You're going to need a rigid skeleton, or it's just going to fall under its own weight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. That's really fun. Different. Let's loop it. So you shot this at home, obviously. What kind of light were you using, or
Just a lamp.
just a lamp? Yeah, whatever works.
Yeah.
To be resourceful, to use what you got already at home and get the most out of it, it's just as valuable. Always that lab upstairs is up there for if any of you, there's a lot of open time, you can use it. We're also getting new cameras There's been COVID relief funds to purchase all kinds of things that are changing. The refresh of the Macs are happening. Also upstairs, those Macs are going to be replaced by new Macs, and we're getting all new cameras. So if you're thinking about doing stop motion for your capstone, it's great to get practice at home. This will help you get some of your skills and practice up. But then, like, if you animated it in the lab upstairs, you would have so much control too. And we even have a motion control dolly. You could have the dolly move as you're animating. And it's a lot of really good tools, obviously Dragon Frame and good lights. So in a controlled environment. But for doing this at home and on your own, it's really great. And you got such an expression out of the arms and had these side steps. And it's really hard to, it's almost like if you don't have a really good rig, it's hard to make all the motions you need. Like, it would be nice that if it did a side to side, you could really get 1 foot off the ground first and then step into. But who knows, probably fall over if you did that.
Yeah.
Did you ever try to use magnets on the feet? Even you can embed that in clay. So if you like had a character here that was stop motion, even if this thing were smaller and made out of clay, and this we had a metal platform, you can get, there's some strong magnets, some magnets are really strong at Home Depot, you can tell, we just test them. You can't pull them apart. You could hot glue them to the bottom of the feet and put them on, you also can get a square of metal, and it'll be strong enough, magnet will be strong enough to adhere to the metal through cloth, even velvet, or even if you want to build up the surface so you can't even see the metal. And then the feet will always stick to the ground, always pin to the ground. That's good until you want to get a foot up like that. And stop motion is really, really tricky because we take for granted a character jumping, right? We're like, how do you do that? So you have to think about these ways that you need some support device like you did with the paper clip to get something more supportive, even a leg, or if you want it jumping or flying, you have to have a piece of clear support structure. You could use a plastic clear support structure and try to get it erased, or thin wire, or hang it or dangle it. But again, if you were animating it upstairs, we'd have a lot more control. You could hang things from C-stands. But very strong in creativity, Brandon, that you went in a very different direction with this. You took it into your own hands, literally, and formed your character out of clay and animated it from home. It just gives it that extra level of innovation and charm. Anything you change about this?
I have done something different to change its environment as it's dancing. I changed the background. I would place it somewhere else, and then I wanted to do like a circle around it while he's dancing.
That's the kind of thing. Yeah, it'd be so hard to control. It looks like whatever you're using as a tripod is moving, and you're just trying to control the basics. The jitter. It's not strobing, and that's nice. But ideally, if you had a green screen background and a really locked off camera, and you have a green screen that would be psyched here, so the floor of the table would be a large piece of paper that would just softly ramp into the back wall with a single sheet. It's called a psych, and it would create no corner. There wouldn't be any line. So you could have your character entirely enveloped by a green screen, and then you'd have a lot more flexibility. To do that at home is very tricky because you have to rig it, set it up, and light it very carefully. But just looking at the animation, to me it's like, at someone's working space at home. It's like breaking out of the studio and everyday studio materials and the clay coming to life. Yeah, really cool. All right then, thank you, Brandon.